Hey everyone. So a few years ago, I was having a couple of drinks in a bar with a coworker. Oh man, remember bars? That's such 2019. We were chatting and he asked, "So, have you always been this outgoing?" This is one of my software engineering coworkers. I thought I'd make a video going over the story I shared with him and just how I became like confident and outgoing over the last probably 10 years, 10-year journey. So this surprises people that I work with and I've met recently in the last few years, but I definitely was not always as confident and outgoing as I am right now. I was 100% a dork in grade school and even early high school. I was the kid who installed a different version of Linux on their computer like every month or so. I compiled my own Linux kernel. I ran a web server and a Counter-Strike server from my own machine in my bedroom. And since it was in my bedroom, it made a lot of noise, so I turned it off whenever I went to bed. I had some friends, but I was by no means like popular. I had like 3 or 4 close friends. And like truthfully, I really didn't like myself or my personality at all when I was in grade school. Like not at all. So being smart was a core part of my identity as a human being at the time because I was doing well in school, I was really into computers, but it manifested in me always wanting to be right, as if being right and smart had anything to do with one another. I know now that being right and being smart are two completely different things. I remember though when I was going into high school, I made a conscious decision that I'd become confident. I was like really didn't like how I was, and I made a decision to push myself out of my comfort zone whenever I could and meet new people when I got into high school. I think this stemmed from a key turning point in my life in the 8th grade, which was me getting into heavy metal music. I was into pop punk and rock earlier, like I really liked Green Day and I really liked Billy Talent, like every good Canadian. But I slowly got into faster and faster punk music until finally I discovered metal near the end of the 8th grade with the band Trivium. And I remember hearing a fast guitar solo for the first time and just thinking, holy cow, I have to learn how to write these. Like, how do they know what notes to play? Like, there must be some sort of system behind this. They can't just be guessing each note one by one. This led me to buy a guitar and begin to learn how to play. So over that summer, I practiced a lot. And when I went into high school, I still wasn't decent by any means, but I did just have enough that I created a goal for myself to start a band. So now I had a new hobby that wasn't directly tied to my intelligence. This allowed me to slowly start focus my identity away from being like the smart person slash the right person, because now I had an outlet that was 100% dedicated to being creative, which meant being smart didn't matter as much to me. Although I wouldn't get over this whole like being smart thing until years later, but I started going down that path. Number 2, I made the decision to push myself into uncomfortable situations and use the new location of high school as an excuse for a new start. And I used this strategy later in my life too. So high school rolls in, I see there's an election for student council. I told myself, well, Jamie, you wanted to be pushed out of your comfort zone. This is definitely the way to do it. So I brought myself to the meetings, I ran, and I wrote a speech and spoke in front of like 300 plus people, cracked a couple of jokes, and actually got in. Later that year, I also entered a short film competition with some friends, again pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and again focusing on creative endeavors rather than intelligence-based ones. And looking back on that, that kind of like kind of forgot that I did that short film stuff until I started doing YouTube again a few months ago. And I really forgot how much I really liked shooting videos and editing videos, because it's one of those hobbies I just kind of lay dormant for a few years until I started getting to YouTube a few months ago. So by 10th grade, I'm good enough at guitar to start a band. I go out recruiting for other band members and form my first metal band halfway through grade 10, with the goal of us playing the high school talent show at the end of the year. So again, I set a goal. One of the people in that band actually is the guitarist for my current band in Virtue in Los Angeles over 13 years later. I was like, not only have we been best friends for that long, but I was the best man for his wedding like 6 months ago and everything. So I formed this band, organized the practices, and the four of us write some songs and fill up the rest of the set with some Atreyu covers and some very poorly played Protest the Hero covers, and play this high school talent show. I remember after that talent show, I thought to myself, well, now what? Like, how do we get more shows? I looked around to the other three guys in the band, and I knew nobody else was going to start reaching out to people. So I knew it was my time to push myself out of my comfort zone yet again, even further, and start cold MySpace messaging bands in my hometown to see if we could jump on their shows. Also, I started going to local shows with the thought of talking to other bands to see if I could get into other shows that way in person. This reminds me, one night there was a local show going on with a local band we all liked. They were called Assassinate the Following. Shout out to my buddy Brandon. I couldn't get anyone else to go to me to this gig. I remember my guitar player and my drummer were all busy. So I went by myself because I knew they would be a good contact to have in my hometown because we both played similar music. I'm not gonna lie, I was like absolutely petrified going to this by myself. I showed up to this Legion Hall gig by myself at like 16 years old. I didn't know anyone there. I think there was maybe 30 people there, but I was like terrified. I kind of knew the bassist from one of the opening bands, so I said hi to him first, and then just started talking to other people. And then I chatted with the guys and Assassinate the Following, and obviously they were all friendly. But like at 16, I was so nervous and self-conscious. It was a big win for me that day to go by myself and actually talk to them. But I made the connection, started forming the relationship, and that's how my high school band started to get more shows. Just by going out talking to people, again, pushing myself out of that comfort zone. This led me to meeting more and more and more people in the music scene in my hometown, which led me to becoming friends with the promoters, which led me to working for one of the promoters and eventually running my own shows. So by the time I hit college, I was booking about 4 to 7 shows a month. Sometimes more because I was also booking small tours for my own band at the time. And again, I kept pushing myself further and further and further out of my comfort zone. And as a promoter, like, oh man, if you want to crash course in freaking difficult conversations, you think the difficult conversation you had with like the graphic designer on the other team was tricky last week. Imagine being like 17 years old, really skinny, and like a freaking 30-year-old, 35-year-old like skinhead guy with a tattoo is like yelling at you because like the set time was different than what he thought. Or like being this young and someone else 10 years older than you yelling at you because he thought he was supposed to get paid even though they only brought like 2 people to the show. Like this is a good fast track and difficult conversations that I did not realize how valuable this was until I started hitting like the corporate world. After college, I ended up moving to Los Angeles. My longtime girlfriend at the time, who was like the singer, she was the singer of my band back in college, broke up with me shortly after we moved there, like 3 weeks in. So again, I found myself at a new comfort zone level to break out of. Finding a date as a single 24-year-old guy in Los Angeles. And again, I was using the strategy of, you know what, new location, new head start. After doing some online dating, I realized the match rate just doesn't really work out for guys, especially younger guys. I get maybe 1 match every 200, 300 swipes, maybe. So I decided to try the good old-fashioned way. Finding a buddy and going to bars and talking to random women until I found one that clicked. So that began a 1.5-year long journey of me and a friend of mine who was about 10 years older, going out 2 or 3 times a week, talking to at least 10 different women every week. And that really, really, really worked that confidence muscle. By the time I've gotten to today, I have, one, gotten to a really great place in my career as a software engineer. I'm at the point now where I'm confident in my engineering ability without being a know-it-all, without worrying about always being right or smart. Enough that I know I will always, always, always be able to find a job, which is it's a really great feeling to have. Two, I've gotten to a point in my main creative endeavor in heavy metal that I'm very happy with too. I've released a full-length album back with my band in Canada, filmed like 3 music videos, and become okay with not being in the spotlight as a lead guitarist anymore and focusing more on bass. In the meantime, I've picked up even more hobbies. I've picked up salsa dancing, I've picked up stand-up comedy, cooking, learning Chinese, and working out. This is incredibly important because 100% of my self-identity is no longer tied to being a smart software engineer. I no longer have to be right all the time to feel confident. Actually, I do not, literally, I can safely say, I do not care about being right at all at this point. Honestly, if you're an engineer and you can name at least 2 other hobbies you have, seriously consider picking up a creative hobby like guitar or singing and a physical hobby like weightlifting or martial arts. There's a good chance you'll run into the same problem I did and base your entire identity around being a smart software engineer, which is very dangerous for your social skills, and it's probably kind of dangerous for your mental health in general too. I think I'll make a video in the future about why tying your entire, say that 10 times fast, why tying your entire self-identity to your career is probably not a good idea, but that's out of scope for this video. I really want to drill home this point. I was not confident at all growing up. It's funny because when some of my older friends from high school come visit in Los Angeles, they poke fun of me in front of my newer friends in LA. And my newer friends don't believe that I was this shy. Like, I really want to stress the timeline for all this happened over the course of 15 years. But the key milestone for me was making the decision to be confident and just practice talking to people. Learning guitar and learning how to code really drilled into my brain with, well, if I just practice something, I'll get better at it. I can learn stuff. And I applied that same principle to becoming an outgoing, friendly person. Like, I actively work on like learning how to be friendly, learning how to talk to people, learning how to form relationships. Like, that's something I like focus on just as much as I focused on like learning Ruby on Rails or JavaScript or whatever. And this is also why I get pretty frustrated when people, especially engineers, just throw their hands in the air and say, oh, I'm just not outgoing. Oh, I'm just not confident. That's just the way I am. I don't have any connections. I wasn't born outgoing like James over here. I actually feel a bit insulted because I work so freaking hard and put myself into so many flippin' uncomfortable positions to get to this level of confidence that when I hear someone say that, I get kind of angry. If you're interested in more resources in learning how to improve your social skills and confidence, I highly recommend checking out the Jordan Harbinger Show podcast. I've met the host a couple of times in some events, and he's like such a great person. He's super friendly, and he really practices what he preaches. His 6-minute networking course is also a great resource, and it's absolutely free. I'll link to it in the description below so you can check it out. Thanks again for watching, everyone. If you've got this far, comment New England clam chowder so I can see that you've actually watched the whole video. Hopefully, this is a bit inspiring if you're a shy engineer like I was back in the day. Let me know what other questions or topics you want me to cover. In the meantime, remember, the key to confidence is hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and smashing that notification bell so you can be part of the notification squad, the coolest squad on the internet. And I will catch you in the next video.